In regard to politics, you may have a different animal, but you'll always be stuck with the same shit. You know what? Truth is truth, even if no one believes it. And lies, well, they're still lies, even if everyone believes it. If you guys enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, and share it with everybody you know.
They do have nuclear weapons. They are being backed by China. They are a real threat. They are firing missiles right over Japan. They can test weapons, but doing it in this way, threatening preemptively to blow up the U.S., to say it's inevitable, that's pointing a gun at us and really next level bravado. It's incredible chicken.
Before I start this video, I just want to say that as much as I despise Hillary Clinton or any puppet politician for all their corruption, lies, and downright evil ways, as much as I disagree with and can't stand CNN or the Young Turks or any of the mainstream media talking heads promoting the corporate agenda to destroy America, if a truth is spoken through any one of those people or outlets, to deny that truth because of who spoke it is to reveal that you're really not interested in accepting the truth at all. If you only accept truth from those you believe are known for telling the truth, then you set yourself up for accepting lies. See, truth is truth, even if it accidentally falls out of the mouths of those who are accustomed to telling lies. And lies? Well, they're still lies, even if they come out of the mouths of those you believe to be telling the truth. Many people view Alex Jones as a hard-working truth teller who exposes globalists, runs contrary to mainstream ideologies, and brings the unvarnished facts to a thirsty public. In this interview with Ron Paul, it's very easy to see where Jones' devotions lie in regard to neocon authoritarian ideologies.
That said, I agree with you in practice and function, but even people like Joel Skousen that agreed with you about not having a war, in the last 5 or 6, saying they were frauds. He says when you get down to North Korea now, they do have nuclear weapons. They are being backed by China. They are a real threat. They are firing missiles right over Japan. They can test weapons, but doing it in this way, threatening preemptively to blow up the U.S., to say it's inevitable, that's pointing a gun at us and really next level bravado. It's incredible chicken.
Now understand what Jones is saying here. He's saying there's a real threat, a boogeyman, North Korea, a bad guy with a gun threatening our lives. And he's about to go on and say, therefore, we need to do something to put down this threat.
And then you have the Clintons, as you know, transferring the reactors, transferring the missiles in the mid-90s that you and others criticized when you first got back into Congress. And so there's a lot of blame going around here. And then you just have the horrible little communist third-generation dictator fat off the blood of his little skinny citizens. I agree with you, the poor North Korean slaves and their children. I feel sorry for them. I don't want to have to, nuke the DMZ.
Jones is actually suggesting launching nukes against the demilitarized zone, which would kill God knows how many people. He's saying, I don't want to have to do it, but I think we should to get rid of the fat little dictator.
But if they do strike us first, I think they may be crazy enough to do it, then it's going to take a major commitment to make sure they can't counter-respond.
What he's saying is, if North Korea attacks us, it's going to take a major commitment on our part to make sure they can't counter-respond. He's actually entertaining a nuclear attack. Now this is strike one for Jones in this interview. Listen to Ron Paul's rebuke of Jones' misguided and authoritarian approach.
You're buying into all the garbage that's passed out there by the deep state and neoconservatives and the media.
This is a huge slam against Jones, who's, at least in his own mind, a defender against the deep state, the neocons, and the dishonest media. Ron Paul is basically saying, Alex, you're acting as a mouthpiece for the people you're constantly criticizing.
My suggestion very clearly on what we should do is we should allow the South Koreans to talk to the North Koreans. What's wrong with that? They're the ones that have everything at stake, and we don't even allow them to do that. And yet they're willing to. Just last week, the South Koreans, in an effort to break this conflict, they sent a couple $1 million to North Korea to take care of some of the kids that are suffering from our sanctions.
While Paul's trying to make a serious point as he rebukes Jones, Alex draws this thought balloon above Kim Jong-un's head that says food. It's almost like he doesn't want to listen to a well-deserved rebuke.
The people suffer. We kill people. We killed almost 1 million Iraqis with our sanctions before we went to war. And all these sanctions do is just provoke the bitterness.
And this is true, guys. Whenever you hear the word sanctions, we just need to equate it with what it really is. It's a provocation to war.
We need to allow. Why do we prohibit the South Koreans from talking to the North Koreans?
By the way, Madeleine
we
Albright.
did that in Vietnam. And the French and Americans did that, and millions of
Sure. I mean, it's like Madeleine Albright said, 500,000 Iraqi children is a good price to pay with the sanctions. It's probably way over 1 million. Lancet, British Medical Journal, said it was like 1.3 back in like 2007, going back to 1990.
This was a dodge on Jones' part and wasn't even Paul's main point. The point is that Alex is trying to beat the war drums when diplomacy and leaving people the hell alone unless they strike us first is what we should be doing. Alex is proposing there's a boogeyman and we need to go and take him out.
And understand, Dr. Paul, I'm just wargaming both sides of the debate. I've not bought in to the garbage that we need to have a war or that sanctions are always the best thing.
That's not true at all. Jones was parroting neocon talking points, he got caught, and he got called out on it. Now he's backpedaling.
As you said, Vietnam now loves us, hates communist China, is becoming a free market powerhouse, and we should have made a deal with Ho Chi Minh to go in there and be free market to begin with, but we double-crossed him, tried to overthrow him, as you know, back in 1960. So I understand the history of it as you do as a former Air Force officer. The only thing I'm getting at here is that we can certainly recognize communist regimes are also horrible evils. Just because we have neocon problems here, I mean, certainly this is a great example of how communism is a horrible nightmare like Venezuela.
Well, I still think that you're seeing them as a much greater threat. And when I was drafted in 1962 over the Cuban crisis, you know, there was a real hot Cold War going on at the time. But we had danger then. The Soviets had 30,000 nuclear missiles and weapons. But we didn't provoke or thought we had to get rid of them. We actually dealt with them. Kennedy talked to them and, you know, got rid of that crisis we had in Cuba. That North Korea, they don't have this capability. It's not. China is not. It is not interested, not in their interest, to allow this guy to provoke and get into a war with us. So that isn't quite accurate to say that they're in cahoots with China and they have nuclear bombs and all this sort of thing. And I think that we should allow South Korea to start having negotiations. Let China and Russia, they're involved more. They should be more involved than us. Let them monitor the
Sure,
talk.
Dr. Paul.
But why are we 6,000 to 7,000 miles away? Once again, we've been involved in a civil war that's been going on endlessly. It's time we stopped it.
Let's be clear. I agree with you. I have 4 children. You've got a bunch of children. You've got a bunch of grandchildren and great-grandchildren, I'm told now. And I absolutely do not want us to have a nuclear war. I do not want this to happen. I understand that what you're saying is historically true. I'm simply pointing out that President Trump has been right on so many other issues. And I understand that it looks like there's been an escalation. He believes that the strategic appeasement, the strategic patience has run out, and that he's looking for some other way to get North Korea to come to the bargaining table. Hell, months ago, Rex Tillerson was saying, let's have talks, stop this rhetoric, and it only seemed to encourage Kim Jong-un. So I understand you can say we're ganging up on North Korea, and the people hurt are the poor folks in it. That's true. I'm not saying you're wrong. But what about the dictators? What about the horrible, evil leaders of the nation? What are we supposed to do about them?
Alex comes right back to his original point. There's a boogeyman out there. And yeah, we may have horrible boogeymen here, but we need to take those bad men out over there who are threatening our so-called democracy. This is the kind of talk that got us into Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iran, you name it. This is banker talk. All wars are bankers' wars. And their mantra is, there's someone out there threatening your way of life, and we must empower the military-industrial complex to go after them and keep us safe.
Alex, Alex, you're speaking for the neoconservatives. That's their line of talk of why we have to do this. And I'm just arguing it's totally unnecessary. It didn't work. You admit it didn't work in Vietnam, and we should have done that differently, and we're friends with them. We win more in peace than we do in war, but we've been in Korea. This whole thing is just based on a lot of misconceptions. I think our administration has accepted neocon lies, and they're going with it. But
and I agree with you.
Get into trouble because of the diplomacy and the tone and all this.
And I agree with you. So, in just a minute or two, because I have a few other questions.
Actually, Jones doesn't agree with Ron Paul at all. Why? Because he's too busy being a mouthpiece for the bankers as he toes the Trump party line. Listen to this clip of an interview posted by the YouTube channel The Conscious Resistance.
Can I just ask you one quick question?
Sure.
Is there any difference between Donald Trump and any of the other authoritarians?
No, well, there's differences. Conservatives and the liberals are authoritarians, and but they're different because they want to use their authority in different manners. But they're authoritarians, and they're
Different shades of authoritarian.
Yeah, and most of them blend together. See, and the other thing that people don't understand is there's too much bipartisanship in Washington. The Democrats and Republicans get along. They support all the wars. They support all the debt. They support all the Federal Reserve, all the bailouts. And that's where the real problem is they're together. But Nancy Pelosi and Boehner were best of friends. And you'd see them fighting and hollering, but they'd obstruct, and then at the end, they'd have an omnibus bill come up 5 minutes before Christmas. Oh, okay, pass it, and they get to write everything.
So it really is like wrestling. They're friends behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's fake. It's
So
fake philosophically, but there is antagonism. Some of them grow to hate each other, but philosophically,
At the end of the day, they come together bipartisan to work
you
against.
You have to think in terms of interventionism and non-intervention, authoritarianism versus liberty, voluntarism versus force.
Well,
that's how you should be divided.
One more question. So you just named how both parties are working together. They're different shades of authoritarianism and superficially different. And you inspired millions of people around the world, I would say, and brought people to the message of liberty and to Rothbard and to anarchism for some people. Seeing the authoritarianism that exists, do you think that there's any hope within the system? And if not, what would you suggest your supporters do?
I have tremendous hope because the system, the world will soon face a consequence of what the Soviets faced. Total. We didn't have to. I grew up with the Cold War, was drafted for the Cuban crisis, and the nukes were facing each other. And the Soviet system didn't collapse because we bombed them or fought them. There was no hot war. It failed because it was a failed idea. And our interventionism, our pseudo-capitalism, crony capitalism, our fiat system, it's going to fail. It's going to come down. And even though Washington makes a lot of noise and the media makes the noise, the real rumblings come from people that for the most part, that I'll meet here. Because you're dealing with something sort of outside the system and try to compensate for it. And these ideas, like I've always said, when a time has come, you can't stop an idea. The government can't stop it.
Is anarchism or self-governance the answer?
What's that?
Is anarchism or self-governance the answer?
Well, I like the word self-governance. I don't volunteer the word...
or voluntarism?
I like voluntarism. The more the merrier.
Do you think that's really the true answer? Like you said, this is an unsustainable system. If you gave one message to your supporters, what would it be?
Exactly how, if somebody comes in my house robbing me and I don't want to kill them and I arrest them, am I going to go out and find some source, to settle this dispute? No, I'm not an anarchist, but I'll tell you one thing. I went to Washington the first time in the 70s. I got involved in politics in the early 70s, but I would say that back then I was typical conservative Republican, and I probably would have endorsed, maybe 60, 70% of government and probably more military spending than I do now. And the longer I was there, and the longer I saw how the special interests are, the more I became aware of how wicked the government is. And the government is at fault. The government is the problem. The government starts the war. The people never start the war. People, just think of the Iraqi people and the American people. leading up to that stupid war that's still going on. How many American citizens? Oh yeah, I'm anxious to get over there and shoot Iraqis who are 18 years old too. None of
We
it.
have more in common than we know.
Guys, as long as there's profit in war, there will be little incentive for peace. Thank you guys for watching. Leave your thoughts for the world and the Google Thought Police in the comments section below. Also, it's been requested that I take a look at Showtime's series Who is America with Sacha Baron Cohen as he tries to punk gun rights activists. I watched it and it was very interesting. If you guys want me to comment on that, let me know. Before you go, check out one of the most in-your-face, hard-hitting, conversation-starting shirt stores on the planet. Just by wearing one of these t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, or cutoffs, and without saying a word, you can let people know that black rifles matter. You can inform the sleeping masses that fluoride is dumbing them down, that Google is a gulag-style censorship machine, that the Department of Homeland Security is merely security theater, that the NSA makes your private life their business, that the Grim Reaper supports everyone's troops, that we need to legalize freedom, that in life there are no excuses, that CNN is a communist news network, voting is the suggestion box of slaves, that 9/11 was a lie, and that all official stories should be questioned. Also, let people know we're in the middle of a full-blown sheepvolution, taxation is theft, the IRS is an immoral robbery service, cops enjoy protecting and serving the crap out of you, that the space you occupy is not a gun-free zone, and that gun-free zones are the most dangerous places on earth. Your purchase helps support more hard-hitting content on my censored channel. As of the recording of this video, I have over 90 designs. I take your requests for new designs, and I'm adding new ones every week, so check back often. The link to the store is in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.